23rd, we went, there was 22 of us, and we headed for a 6-hour drive, heading for an egg farm. We had 7 vehicles, and in those 7 vehicles, we had 150 poultry crates loaded up in there. Each of the commercial poultry crates can house 10 birds. So we headed down. When we got to our destination, we checked into a very upscale, fancy Super 8 motel. Went to bed, got up at 4:30 in the morning, met in the parking lot, and then caravaned to the egg farm. We knew we were near before we even saw the farm because we got the whiff of the aroma of those god-awful farms out there. And then from a distance, we saw rows of sheds with dim lights. We pulled into the farm. We identified the shed of which birds were going to come home with us. And that was the day, 2 years ago, actually this weekend, when we rescued 1,500 chickens at an egg farm. We can save that many birds at one time because we are fortunate that we have a separate facility in Grass Valley, and we have a separate facility in Vacaville, which is run by our rescue ranch manager, Jan Galeazzi. She takes those birds in, and then we also have a very active adoption program that Jacinda Virgin operates for us. And so we are one of the fortunate sanctuaries that we can do repeatedly these large-scale rescues. Each time we do rescues, we bring a new group of volunteers and interns with us. We want to expose as many people as we can to inside those farms. The reaction, interestingly, is always the same. You know, there's some eagerness, there's some anxiety. Everyone feels a little bit anxious as we pull into that farm. But when we get there, they jump out of the vehicle, they peek into the sheds, and every reaction's the same. There is this stunned silence. Because you really don't believe what you see. You can see films, you can see photographs, but until you are inside one of those places, it's hard to describe. They're peeking in and they're seeing thousands, tens of thousands of birds crammed inside those rusty cages. And literally 3 feet high. 3 feet high of feces underneath. And we're coughing and gagging as we're walking in there. And then you're thinking, how the hell do those birds withstand months after months after months inside this hellhole? So it leaves everyone fairly speechless. Then the next thing we do, and we're pretty methodical about that. This program has really been under the guise of Margie Beach, our education director. She designed it and she manages it. Once we get there, it's like clockwork. We unload all the vans with these poultry crates, 150. We stack them outside each row, and then we begin the pulling. We work in teams of 2 and 3. Openings in those cages, it's about 8-inch square. And you barely can get your hands in. You've got to cup your hands around the back of the bird's wings, and then gently coax her out. She's screaming. She has no idea that we're the rescuers, because of the neighboring shed, they're the pullers that are reaching in with one hand, grabbing them by the legs, and ripping them out. Their wings, because they're flapping them, because they're scared, bend backwards and break as they're just pulling them out like this. Whereas we're going in like this, scooping them out and gently trying to bring them out. They're holding on with their feet to the wire. And you have to kind of untangle them. We hand that to the person right next to me. That person hands it to the person who's opening up the crate. And we just do this constantly. Pull out, hand, until we get 1,500 birds loaded. As we're getting them out of the barns, Then we start loading up the vehicles, and the vehicles take off. They stagger them to when they get to the shelter. So when we get to the Vacaville site, where most of our rescued birds go to, we have a whole new team of volunteers that are there to welcome us and direct us as to which barn to go to, help us unload the crates, take the crates to the appropriate stall where we're going to open them up. And then, this is what we've all been waiting for. The experience when we get to open the crates. Some birds enthusiastically just jump out. Others need a little coaxing. And then there's others that are so petrified they're paralyzed. And it takes a while, even when you gently try to take them out. Now right now, rather than me tell you a little bit more about that moment, Margie, show the video of Margie did this PowerPoint for me, so she's in charge of it all. It's only 30 seconds. It interestingly got 368 hits.
368,000.
Oh, 368,000. Oh, it's okay. This is why I had Margie do the PowerPoint. When I spoke here last time, I was embedding all these videos, and none of them worked because I didn't know what the heck I was doing.
Anybody knows how to make this magically work?
Maybe our audio guy? Well, what it somewhat shows is the enthusiasm of those birds jumping out. And then what we get to observe is them experiencing all their firsts. All their firsts in life. The first time they're actually opening up their wings and flapping. First time in their lives. First time that they're off of wire and they're standing on earth. The first time that they're actually able to jump up. The first time that they take sun baths, which birds do. First time they take a dust bath, which birds do. The first time they perch, although they have to learn to do that. All the firsts in life until they become actually chickens. Now, as exhausting as that, those 24 hours are of the rescue, it is a cakewalk compared to what's involved taking care of those birds at the sanctuary. The animal caregivers are identifying those that are in a weakened state, that need to be isolated. They're putting them aside. Then a night crew comes of volunteers. And I gotta say, the volunteers are an integral part of almost everything Animal Place does. And then what the night crew does is called declumping. Raise your hand if you know what declumping is. Few of you. You wouldn't know it unless you participated in the declumping. So birds, whether they came from free-range operations, cage-free operations, battery operations, they've all lived in very close confinement. They have no space. And when you give them freedom, when you give them space, that's foreign to them. It scares them. So at dusk, when birds normally come into the barn and perch at night, these birds at dusk go into all the corners of each stall, and then one will get on top of the other. And if you're not there to declump, the ones underneath will suffocate and die. And you have to be there right when they start bedding down at dusk, because if you wait even a moment too long, you will have deaths. So we have a whole team of volunteers that have to declump 1,500 birds. So you're literally on your hands and knees, and you're scooping out those below, and you're putting them aside. You go to the next corner, the third corner, the fourth corner. By that time, you got to start again. And this goes on for approximately an hour, until it's actually nightfall, and when you've removed those from the bottom, they will stay there. They won't go back. That behavior typically lasts, since we've done so many of these rescues, about 3 weeks. Every single night. So it takes those hens a while to acclimate to their freedom. Now we also had another video, which probably won't work either. It won't. Okay. Other video we had, it was CBS affiliate in San Francisco came and every time we do a rescue, we contact the news media. It's crucial that they're involved. If we can paint a picture for the suffering that goes into people's eggs, if we can describe to them the conditions under which those birds lead, they see them when they come to Animal Place. And they also see, which is kind of a foreign concept to many of the news people, all these people that are just coming out to help chickens. Why chickens? Why do you care so much? That was what the CBS reporter kept asking me. He didn't quite understand. But after spending time with us and interviewing the volunteers and the interns, he got it. And he did a beautiful, beautiful sensitive piece on this rescue and interviewed 2 of our interns. They were excellent spokespeople. The residential internship program we have is one of my most favorite programs. It's run by Jonathan Hussein, who's here today. Jonathan, where are you?
Over here.
Oh, here. So if you have any questions about wanting to intern at Animal Place, he's the guy to see at lunch. He's also brought all the interns with him that we have right now. So we have anywhere from 2 to 7 interns. They come for 2 to 3 month stints, and they work either in animal care or they work in advocacy. Some interns, like Megan, is working in both. And the experience that these young people get from their time with Animal Place and what they give to the animals is immeasurable. They graduate from our internship program being that much stronger advocates. Why? Because they've done it. They haven't just read about it, they've done it. They've spent time with the pigs. They've pet the cows. They go out on the rescues. They've helped with euthanasia. And yesterday, which was kind of comical, we were moving a very large pig, Wilbur, that we had recently rescued. And I don't know what the heck we would have done without them, because moving that 800-pound pig up into the trailer so that we could move them to the other side of the sanctuary took everybody's muscle. I was just in front of them feeding them cookies. That was my job. I wasn't providing the muscle to it all. The adoption program that we have that accompanies this, the rescues, is obviously crucial. We can only take in the number of animals that we can find good forever homes. So what we do is we have adoption applications online. People fill it out. The adoption coordinator screens those. If it passed that first session, then she calls the adopter. At that point, they're either accepted or they're denied, or sometimes they're questionable, and then we try to do a home check. So we give as much care as we can to finding homes for the hens as people do for rescue dogs. It was interesting because we had an open house at the sanctuary at our meet out event a couple weekends ago, and there was a couple there that had just adopted a dog, and I won't say from which county, because when they heard about what they had to go through if they were interested in adopting a chicken from Animal Place, they said, my gosh, we didn't even need to do that for the dog that we just adopted, and we were kind of shocked by that. So the adoption screening is absolutely crucial. Animal Place also partners with animal shelters. Oh, I see that video. Wait a minute, this phone reminds me. Plane. We flew last year 1,100 chickens back to New York, and 9 sanctuaries took them in. UPC taking 50, is that right, Karen?
Yes.
Yeah. 50. So we will kind of go to no ends to find homes for the chickens. So partnering, we partner with local shelters in a few areas: adoption, rescue, training, and advocacy. We can have such a successful adoption program. One is because we will go pretty much anywhere in the state, as well as obviously back east. We also have flock partners with the shelters. We did an adoption event down in Los Angeles, I think it was last weekend, and then today our adoption coordinators in Fresno. So we will work very closely with the SPCA's, Humane Societies, and animal control agencies. With rescue, those few animal control, and SPCAs that enforce the state anti-cruelty laws for farmed animals, we want to be there for them. Todd Stosey with Santa Cruz Animal Care and Control is one of our heroes. He will go into the small farms and he will impound animals, farmed animals that aren't being well treated. He will cite them. And when animal control does that, it's just incumbent that us sanctuaries be there to take those animals in to support them. We also work with them in training. Captain Cindy Machado with Marin Humane Society, Officer Stosey with Santa Cruz. They're going to be doing a training class at our Farmed Animal Conference the first weekend in June. We've also done farmed animal care and investigations at Marin Humane Society, and we've also done them at our shelter. So we work pretty cooperatively. And with respect to advocacy, for a member of the California State Humane Association, we've lobbied them successfully, I'm pleased, to endorse our Food for Thought campaign. Will we be able to show that video? Can we show the DVD of it? Can we put that in?
Oh, maybe.
Oh, where's the? Do you want to grab the DVD? Our Food for Thought program is extremely dear to my heart. My background before co-founding the Sanctuary, and I also used to work for the Fund for Animals, is I come from a shelter background. And, well, 35 years ago, it pained me to see animals serve at functions. It made no sense to me that we do what we can to save dogs and cats while we have total disregard for chickens and cows and turkeys and pigs. I will never forget when a stray piglet was picked up in East Palo Alto, and our officer came into the front counter holding this squealy, screaming little pink piglet, making such a ruckus. And if any of you guys know about pigs, you know that they're very vocal. And we all ran down to the office and go, what's going on here? You know, we see this little piglet, we're oohing and awing, and then we put her in a kennel, and then we're visiting all the time, and we're, you know, sharing our lunches with her. Our adoption department is really trying to find a home for her. They can't find a home for a pig that people won't eat. We had one person that they wanted to fatten her up to barbecue her. Obviously, that's not acceptable. But at the same time, when the entire staff, it was like a staff of 100, were oohing and awing on this cute little pink piglet, and we wouldn't adopt her so somebody could barbecue her, because for God's sakes, we're SPCA. We had an event to raise money for the dog kennels, and we served ham. For me, that was that aha moment of that powerful disconnect we have. Powerful disconnect. That piglet that we picked up as a stray, she had value. She had value because we saw her. We could interact with her. But we just bought her sister at the grocery store. So did she say, did it go in? Yes. Yes. Okay. Let me show you an 8-minute video that we just produced that we're taking all around to the shelters. And better that you see it rather than me tell you more about the Food for Thought program.
Hey folks, I'm Jackson Galaxy, your cat daddy and the host of Animal Planet's My Cat from Hell. And I'm here to introduce you to a really exciting program called Food for Thought, brought to you by the Animal Place, one of the country's leading farmed animal sanctuaries with 2 shelters in Northern California. Like most of the organizations that I work with, from time to time you're going to come into contact with a farmed animal rescue. Now that could be a bunny that is surrendered right after Easter, or it could be a flock of chickens that are confiscated from a hoarding case or a cruelty case. It could be a horse that's surrendered because of financial constraints. Whatever it is, if you have the resources and the space, wouldn't you give that animal the same loving care and attention and commitment to a forever home as you would a dog or a cat? Well, of course you would. Now, here's the challenge. What's the difference between that farmed animal and the one that you serve as food at organizational functions. For those of us who work in animal rescue, sheltering, and protection, it's our job to help animals whenever and however we can, and that should extend to our policies concerning food at our events. An animal-friendly menu policy, I think, is an extension of all of our missions, including mine as a TV personality. We get to show folks at every turn what it's like to love all animals and to widen that circle of compassion. And this can easily be done by serving an animal-friendly menu at your functions.
An animal-friendly menu policy, it's a simple statement adopted by your board of directors that outlines your position on serving plant-based, ideally vegan food at your events. Adopting the policy, it's easy and it's mission-driven, as our peers at some of the most respected shelters in the country will tell you.
It's extremely important for animal shelters to adopt a vegetarian-friendly policy because we're the ones on the front lines rescuing the animals in our communities, and it just doesn't make sense to rescue a dog or a cat or even a pig or some other farmed animal and then turn around and serve meat at a community-based function. Why would we go out there and rescue these animals when we're serving other ones for people to eat?
It's important for animal welfare groups to take into consideration animal welfare when they're choosing what foods they want to serve at their functions. The fact of the matter is that the chickens, the pigs, the turkeys, the cattle, these farm animals in our country aren't that different from the dogs and cats who we welcome into our homes and into our families. These are individuals. They have likes, they have dislikes, and most importantly, they want to avoid suffering.
I think it's important to have a policy because it really is a statement of what that organization is about. It sets the tone, it sets the parameters, and it gives staff and volunteers that revitalized mission that they're here to protect animals, so much so that a policy is in place to ensure that it takes place.
There are numerous benefits to serving plant-based foods at our functions. Not only do they help people eat with a nice clean conscience, but also many of these foods that we're serving help improve people's health. So where it's a real win-win for both the guests at our functions and of course for animals as well.
The benefits of an animal-friendly menu policy really show the community that the agency is committed to all animal welfare, not just to the animal welfare of domesticated animals, but to the welfare of all the animals in our community. We're showing them that we're taking the stance by not serving animals at our functions, that we want to truly support all animals.
Part of the mission of the Whatcom Humane Society is that we advocate on behalf of animals and educate on their behalf. And so when you are serving a plant-based diet, that allows you an opportunity to educate your donors, your staff, your volunteers, and the community as to why you have that policy. It gives you an opportunity to talk about the policy, why it's in place, and why it's important as an animal welfare organization to have it.
The benefits of an animal-friendly menu policy are multifold. First, certainly we are consistent in our activities and in meeting our mission. We get to introduce our supporters to a whole other set of food that if they were to adopt some in their diets would reduce the demand on the overall animal agricultural system, which would be wonderful not only for those animals, but also for wildlife. Big animal agriculture has a tremendous toll on the environment and on wildlife populations.
If someone has concerns that there might be drawbacks to adopting a vegetarian-friendly policy at their shelter, I would say to really think long and hard as to why they got into the business. Are we in this business because we want to serve flesh at our fundraisers, or are we in this business because we want to rescue animals? And just because you're having a vegetarian meal at the animal shelter doesn't mean those people who are criticizing it can't go home that night and eat some meat. It's just critical that the animal shelter not promote the serving of animals.
Since the policy has been in place here at the Whatcom Humane Society, we have really had no drawbacks. Once people were educated and explained why the policy is in place, people seem to not only immediately understand why the Whatcom Humane Society had this policy, but respect it.
For us here at the Marin Humane Society, we feel it's really important to emphasize this is just one meal. whether it's a Humane Society sponsored function and we're providing a lunch, dinner, breakfast, or snack. We want to make sure we're sending the message that no animals were harmed in the serving of that product.
99% of our donors were in full support. We had a single donor who decided not to attend our black tie gala because of the policy, and who is still a supporter of ours. And on the other end of the pendulum, we had a supporter who was so ecstatic by our compassionate shift that she came through with a 6-figure gift to our organization to help us care for animals.
Passing an animal-friendly policy at the board level, it's an easy 6-step process. Add the suggested menu policy to your agenda for the next board meeting. Supply food for thought materials to your board prior to the meeting for them to review. Then facilitate an educated and a thoughtful discussion during your board meeting. Tweak the language of the policy to best suit your organization. Then bring the policy to a vote. And once the policy is in place, have your executive director work with the shelter staff, especially those in development and event planning, to implement the policy. Animal Place is here to help with any questions you might have, including pointers on free product donations, recipes, and menu ideas. Numerous nonprofits working with all types of animals, companion, wildlife, and others, have already adopted an animal-friendly menu policy. Join the growing trend. And as a thank you for adopting an animal-friendly policy, we're here to award a $250 grant to the first 100 deserving shelters that apply. Additional details on the grant, sample policies, and additional resources, they can be viewed at our website at foodforthoughtcampaign.org. And from all of us here at Animal Place, thank you. Thank you for caring about animals in need and for considering an animal-friendly menu policy. It's time for all animal agencies to have a consistent message of compassion, even down to the food we serve at our events.
Can I just say something? I have to just react to that.
Yes, please.
We just heard about humane and the way that word term is abused, and this phrase animal friendly sounds to me like more of that same kind of misuse of. Why don't you just go vegan? If you want to stop all harm, why don't you just say vegan and stop? Because it's not humane again if you're still including dairy products in.
I absolutely agree with you. We use the term plant-based, we use the term veggie, we use the term animal-friendly. So we've used several terms when talking to shelters. And I probably didn't set the stage well enough for this film. We first started the Food for Thought program well over 15 years ago. And we did it back then as we did it now, is trying to go peer-to-peer. And what I was told by the shelter director then at Marin Humane Society, saying, oh, this is a piece of cake. This is like picking the low-hanging fruit. Oh, how I wish it was. I sometimes feel it would be easier to get the Rotary Club to adopt a vegetarian policy than shelters. The resistance is immense. Immense. And sometimes there is a necessity for incremental change. I think when it is packaged into what the ultimate goal is. I couldn't agree with you more. Vegetarian is not sufficient. More cruelty goes into that morning omelet or the glass of milk than goes into a hamburger. And it is crucial that every time, we have most of those shelters have only adopted a vegetarian policy. Those that have adopted a vegetarian policy, we're pushing them to go vegan. Most, probably 98% of the SPCAs and humane societies in the country have no food policy whatsoever, and I guarantee you they're absolutely serving dead animals and all their byproducts at their events. So the Food for Thought program, we've expanded it. We now have 3 regional coordinators throughout the United States. So we are seriously tackling this issue now. And this is something that everybody here can do something about. When you think about it, across the country, we have SPCAs and humane societies in every single community. And they are seen as kind of the spokespeople for the animals. People look to them for guidance on how animals are to be treated. And when they are...
Can you change it to vegan now?
I'm sorry?
Can you change it to vegan now? It's been all these years. Can you change it to vegan now? No, I'm sorry. I apologize because I go to Highland for care and I don't know what's in my food in the cafeteria. And that to me is an event. So
what I would like to do is finish my presentation, and then if we have time, I'd like to take questions.
Thank you.
All right? So I'm going to go back to the topic. That's kind of what our Food for Thought program is about, of sanctuaries as change makers. And I think sanctuaries can absolutely be change makers, but it depends on what programs they're going to expand out to. It depends on how far they're willing to go beyond just rescuing and sheltering animals. Sanctuaries have that unique capacity to be, I always call them the classroom without walls. There's really nowhere else where people can go and, thank you, see them, touch them, smell them, interact with them, learn about them, learn about their behavior, but learn about farming practices. It's just crucial that we maximize the role of sanctuaries as education centers. Because I think the goal of all of us is try to personalize that pig, personalize that chicken, personalize that cow. If we can personalize the individual, I think we got a better chance at personalizing the torture. So it's just crucial that sanctuaries have those doors open and invite the public. We have expanded our educational role by actually establishing a museum of animal farming. We're still working on the interior. We got the mural set and some displays designed. But our outside is pretty much completed. And what we have are 5 8-foot-long battery cages, straight from a farm down in San Diego. We have 2 old farrowing crates that have a life-size model of a pig inside. We have a gestation crate. We have 3 veal crates that a volunteer built for us with life-size models inside. We have a human battery cage. We have 2 human gestation crates. We want people to get inside these structures and get a sense for the confinement that these animals experience their entire lives on farms. We'd hoped to actually have the human-sized battery cage here that Becky, our outreach coordinator, was bringing down, but the truck blew up on her way down here. But I had the battery cage in the back, and I had to swing by to pick her up, and it wouldn't fit in my Prius, so no battery cage. But I think we've taken it to the Capitol, we've taken it to Lake Merritt. It makes an excellent display, not just on-site at the sanctuary, but elsewhere. So whether it is a micro sanctuary or larger sanctuaries, the role that we can play as being advocates for the animals, as being change makers, are great. Guided tours are essential. I know of some sanctuaries that don't allow visitors in, and I think that's crazy. This is a wonderful educational opportunity for people to come in. We have actually a moral imperative to open up our barn doors for people. Great, great, great training ground for volunteers. Not only can they be there to help you do feeding and cleaning, but they can also be there to help you tabling, to help you leaflet, to help you on rescues, to help you do presentation to schools. I'm hoping too that all sanctuaries, and including all of you here, will embrace your Humane Society and local SPCA and lobby them to adopt a vegan policy or whatever you can get from them. So So the role of sanctuaries really is to disrupt that dysfunctional relationship we have with animals. We need to disrupt it. We need to challenge people. And it's a heck of a lot easier when you can challenge people after they've interacted with a pig. If they've hugged a cow, they've just sat for a moment to observe chickens. I think it is more difficult for people once they have visited a sanctuary and interacted with the animals and observed them on their way home to stop off at McDonald's. Some do, I know. But I think that seed we planted is quite powerful. And I also think, just by the nature of having a sanctuary, that we are communicating that these animals have value. They have value independent from us. They have as much value as a dog or a cat does. And that we feel it's so important that we will rescue. I can't tell you how many times when I first co-founded Animal Place years ago, people would come by and they'll go, well, where did you get these animals? Well, what do you do with them? Well, we don't do anything. We let them live there. And they don't understand that. But people are understanding that now. And goodness, if we can get the news media to support us on every single hen rescue we do, it's certainly easier to get that compassion and that support for the cows and the pigs. I'd like to just wrap it up with sanctuaries as change makers of the role that everybody here can play in helping. In Northern California, we're fortunate because we have a lot of shelters. We have Pre-Train in Dixon. We have Animal Place in Vacaville next door. We got Harvest Home in Stockton. We're up in the Sierra Foothills in Grass Valley. You've got Farm Sanctuary in Orland. You got Hen Harbor in Santa Cruz. You got Happy Hen in San Luis Obispo. All of them need help. People can help at sanctuaries by just doing the grunt work, shoveling, cleaning barns. You can do help in the education level of giving tours. You can do helping with contacting your local SPCA. You can help with adoption outreach. We have volunteers that work from their home to do adoption screening. And I just want to end with the last message. It's not enough that we educate people about farmed animals. It's not enough that we sensitize them to farm animals. It's not enough that we change their attitude about farm animals. The only thing that's really going to make a difference is if we can change their behavior, if we can motivate them to stop eating them and their products. It doesn't do the cows any good if they feel really bad how they were treated. And then they go home and drink the milk that we stole from her. We can educate people about chickens from the egg farm, and they can feel terrible, but they went and ate the morning omelet. The ultimate goal of all of us, including sanctuaries, we have to change their behavior. Veganism needs to be embedded in every single educational message we put out there. If we're not doing that, we're not doing it. Couple questions? 2 minutes, but 2 minutes. Yeah.
I'm just wondering, like, I would love to take a rescue can, but I live in a community where they're not allowed in my community. Do you have, is there anyone that helps us to go to the city council to get those laws changed?
We actually, we don't play a role in changing the existing zoning. There are probably folks that work on that. We only adopt out to those communities where you know, chickens are allowed. Yeah.
I wanted to go visit your place in Vacaville, like for Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
But I was told it was closed to the public. Are you now open? Like for
the Vacaville site, which was the original location of our sanctuary for the first 20 years, it's only open to volunteers and staff. So it's not open to the public for tours. And that is where the thousands and thousands